I would now like to welcome our final keynote speaker to the stage, Amandeep Kalra. Welcome on stage.
Working.
Amandeep is the co-founder of GreenFlip. He is an architect and an urban designer turned entrepreneur, and is the founder of GreenFlip, a venture-backed digital platform accelerating retrofit in public and private rental sectors by aligning investor capital with climate and social outcomes. So welcome to the stage.
Thank you all so much. Hello, Glasgow. I feel like I'm a comedian saying that. I've been coming to Scotland about twice a month since last year, mostly because I have a long-distance relationship with my business partner, only business partner. And there's three things I absolutely love about Scotland. The first thing is it's got to be the people. You guys, your humor is absolutely hilarious. You only speak in puns and rhymes and fun, so I have to learn that, but I've learned it now, and I've really loved that way of speaking. The second thing is, as an architect, your buildings, your architecture. I spend half my time crashing into stuff on stage because I'm looking up at buildings. And the last one is water. Like, what do you guys put in your water? Seriously. When I go back to London, I carry bottles of water back. Like, my suitcase is just bottles of water back. It's just the sweetest of nectars. Anyway, I'm here to talk to you today about retrofitting homes as a decentralized power station. For as long as I have known, my mum has used one of these, an inhaler. When pumped, delivers vital medication directly to the airways. If any of you are hay fever or asthma sufferers in the room, you'll be very familiar with this beautiful piece of plastic. And my mum was one of those suffering from asthma for a long, long time. And we grew up in this council estate block in southwest London. Single glazed windows, 3 external walls, really leaky, damp and cold all throughout the year. So the council thought, let's fix this. And they added internal wall insulation to the back bedroom where my parents would be sleeping, all 3 walls, and also our living room. And it was terrible. My mum's asthma got progressively worse. She was cleaning the damp and mold off the walls every single week, trying to keep up with it. And she is one of many, many people that the NHS treats through illnesses caused by damp and mold in our homes. And the NHS spends £1.4 billion a year in doing so. So that was almost 20 years ago. So we're like, surely we've solved that now, right? We've solved that. And as you would have seen from David and Rachel this morning, from this image of Mohammed's house in Luton, that unfortunately that's far from the truth. That's internal wall insulation installed as part of the Eco4 scheme after 2022. And the numbers, you've already seen these, so 8% of external wall insulation since 2022 on the Eco4 scheme has failed, and 34% of internal wall insulation has failed. And we keep getting it wrong, because I think we've been scaling what doesn't scale. For all the insulation fans out there, I'm not hating on insulation. I am an insulation fan. But how do we scale without quality trade-offs? That's the key question. And the obvious answer is we design and retrofit better housing. So this is what I went to do as I became an architect, because I wanted to design better housing for people, for housing to be a springboard, not a sink. So half of my career as an architect, the other half I joined the regeneration company, public sector company for Barking and Dagenham, and East London Council. We built 2,000 homes in 5 years on a £1 billion development programme, of which 70% was social housing. And at one point, we were building 1 in 5 social housing in the UK in one borough. But what really struck me when I started to look at retrofit is on the left side is a picture of the Gascoigne estate as it was, and on the right is one of our award-winning regeneration schemes. The figure you're seeing on the right is how much grant a local authority gets for each social housing home they deliver through the Affordable Homes Programme. And on the left is, on average, the amount through the SHDF latest wave for each home that's retrofitted. So you can see, if we just did the left, we don't increase housing supply, and it's actually way more unviable. Yes, homes cost a third more than that, but the numbers become really difficult to stack, and that's the decisions we were making when we were doing some of these big projects, is you can get a similar quantity of homes, but the numbers didn't stack up. And I also looked at a decarbonisation strategy for the largest housing estate in the UK, which was the Becontree Estate in Barking, covering 4 square miles and 40% of the borough's population living there. And what was really interesting when we looked at that estate is that just 70% of those homes were covered by 3 house types. So we just needed to figure out template solutions that we could potentially scale to those 3 house types. What was also really interesting was we talk about fuel poverty, health deprivation, all these things, but I really wanted to get behind the data and see it firsthand. So the red line boundary there shows the boundary of the estate within the wider boundary, which is the boundary of the borough of London Borough, Barking and Dagenham, which is the Becontree Estate. And what you're seeing in there is colours showing EPCs E's to G's, and how many of those, the worst ones, are concentrated within that. The lighter they are, the better they are, and the darker they are, the worse EPCs. Overlay that with a map that shows where the highest levels of fuel poverty are, and it's almost identically within the border of that estate. And the estate has 10 years split equally between private rental, owner-occupied, and social land. And then if you overlay that with the health deprivation indices, you also see a very similar pattern of concentration of the worst deprivation within the same borough. In fact, if somebody from that estate moved to Westminster, they could add 12 years of healthy life expectancy to their age. So we looked at creating these template solutions at differing scales to be able to scale solutions across the borough. We did loads of incredible work with architects, designers, building efficiency engineers. But one thing that I really struggled with is that though we had all the pieces of the puzzle, we had a willing landlord, we've spoken to thousands of residents, investors, patient capital with capital ready to deploy, installers in the area, but the pieces just weren't fitting together in a way that everybody felt that they had something out of it that worked for them, whether it was investors wanting a bit of ownership, landlords not wanting to give some of that ownership, or investors wanting too high of a return, residents not quite happy with the installs. We couldn't make that work together. So I quit my job because I thought I want to be that puzzle in the middle that could go and glue all those other pieces together. And that's where I met my co-founder. He's in the audience somewhere. He's based in Edinburgh. He was very smiley at the time, but when he was less smiley was when he showed me the screenshot of the energy bill he was quoted when he first moved into his bungalow in Edinburgh. This was obviously closer to the height of the energy crisis. So it was a no-brainer. He's a software engineer. He ran the numbers and he's like, well, I can retrofit this and make the payback immediately back. So he did exactly that. He electrified it, he added insulation, he installed solar panels, batteries, the lot. And he went up and down the street to try and convince his neighbors to do the same, because he was like, look at all the benefits, look at the energy bills, my home's more comfortable. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't convince his neighbors, having done it himself. His next door neighbor is now doing solar though, so there is some movement. And we interviewed well over 100 residents, landlords, housing associations, investors, and installers ourselves. And these are some of the things we heard them say. It could be from anything from, I'm not that bothered about going green, to the SHDF funding is not enough to get us to net zero. This one's a fun one. Air source heat pumps don't work, my gas engineer told me. Of course your gas engineer is going to tell you your air source heat pump doesn't work, right? They're not going to tell you go and rip this out because I'll be out of a job. I would rather redo my bathroom or kitchen, to be honest, because I think that adds more value. Ultimately, what we found was actually what we lack is giving people the confidence to act. So I've got 3 ideas, 3 very obvious ideas, because when you'll hear them, you'll be like, okay, this is nothing new. But what I hope to do is come at it from a different angle and inspire some creativity. So number one is sell cars, not parts. We as an industry are really good at selling components of retrofit. We love selling our steering wheels and gearboxes as pumps, insulation, batteries, ventilation systems, when really we need to be selling the right car, i.e. the right system for the right house and the right end user. And if we don't do that, all of the things we've been talking about today around unintended consequences from David and Rachel, that is the likelihood of outcome if we start selling parts, not cars. So that could mean insulation can cause damp, as I experienced directly myself. Pumps on its own could cause higher bills. Solar can be underutilized and pressure the grid. Air tightness could lead to damp as well, and MVHR on its own could lead to higher bills. Now, these are in some instances when not done properly. So my point is, what if we just take and assume a slightly leaky house, not going to get to the perfect house, and we electrify it, we generate energy and we store energy? Could that be enough to get us to an energy powerhouse where we go 80% of the way there to getting to zero carbon retrofit? And why that kind of tech-led approach works for me is there's three reasons why I get really behind that approach. Number one, it's more predictable. It's more predictable to cost, it's more predictable to install, and it's more predictable from a performance point of view than more wet ventilation-related measures. It's more predictable. Doesn't mean it's necessarily those other measures, fabric-related measures, don't work. It's more predictable. Number two, they're more digital, so it's more easier to monitor them, to service them, and control them digitally without being in the home. And lastly, from an installation point of view, the robustness of it, whether it's through technical engineers installing these, the certification schemes that we have, and the quite long guarantees we have, which allow us to repair, replace, and maintain these without ripping up work. Obvious idea number two, make it easy. This is my ChatGPT visual of my co-founder Thomas when he was in the middle of doing his research. It was like he was doing a PhD on nuclear physics when he was thinking about COP efficiency, which air source heat pump, which solar panel, which installer, what specification. And when we ran the numbers on the process from when he first said he wants to retrofit his home to when it was completed, only 5% of the time was actually spent on the installation. The rest of it was between research, tendering, and lead-in. And unfortunately, not everybody has quite the same energy as he does. We're comfort-seeking creatures. We hit a wall of that, and we will probably shrink back into our holes and just turn the thermostat up. Another way to look at this is, when you come back home from work, you open the fridge to see what you want to make for dinner, and you see some dangly carrots, a couple of oranges, and you're trying to think about what can we make out of this, and by the time you've decided, it's one of you on the sofa started looking on Deliveroo and has started going, you fancy a Nando's? Maybe I've given away too much, this is just my personal situation. And we ended up eating lots of stuff that we didn't want to because we wanted to live in a healthy way because that's what we want to do. Yeah, even Keir Starmer needs to do Deliveroos every so often. So what we went for was we recently started using Planthood, really interesting. I don't have any sponsorship with them at all. I just wanted to share why it works super well for us. Is we get 4 vegan meals delivered to us, exactly the right ingredients that we need. Nutritional, healthy, takes 15 minutes, and nothing is wasted. It's the exact portions we need, and nothing is thrown away. It's super easy, and I feel like we need to create the Planthood equivalent for retrofit. Comes in a box, and it's super easy. Third easy idea, obvious idea, let the numbers talk. We don't let the numbers talk enough. When I'm going back to the surveys we did with residents and tenants, when we asked the motivations for retrofit, comfortably over 70% said it was lower bills. Only 10% said going green was a motivational factor, and the rest were about increasing comfort. So let's come at this another way. I want to do some hand raising. Can I get some hands if any of you have used Vinted? Oh, wow, yeah, this is great. It would have been terrible if there was none of you. But from my view, there's at least 80% of you using it, which is more than I expected because it's about 17 million users in the UK, so it's almost a fifth. I also use Vinted. This is some trousers I sold. This is, no, a top that I sold and some trousers I bought. This whole outfit is from Vinted, top to bottom, apart from the turban. Don't look too closely in the front row because you'll see holes. This is my numbers. Not looking very good compared to my wife's numbers. She is off the charts, like she's making some serious gains. And clearly Vinted knows that I really care about the climate, because on her app, she doesn't see this. So I don't know where it's knowing this from. But what's really interesting is Vinted is now the biggest first supplier of clothing in France. It's overtaken any of the other industries. And I went on Vinted first because the clothes were a lot cheaper. I got better quality. And then, only then, as a bonus, I cut carbon. And then a double bonus is I changed my behavior. So when you have an event on tomorrow, and you think, oh, I need a tux for that, I need a tux for this dinner I'm going to tomorrow, I'll look up online, I'll order it, it'll get delivered tomorrow, boom. You can't be doing that with Vinted. You all know that. You've got to start 3 weeks before, you've got to find all the options, you've got to start negotiating with the buyers, £2–3 discount. Then they finally post it and arrives and there's no hole in it, hopefully, right? And that's just changed the whole way of my behavior around buying stuff. We've gotten used to stuff getting so good that we want things immediately and have it delivered tomorrow, whereas this, actually 3–4 weeks lead in, I'm fine, I start planning. And that's really important. So what we need, Retrofit, is to be an absolute financial no-brainer. And everything else follows. And it will follow because I've seen it in so many examples. So as a recap, let's sell cars, not parts. Let's make it super easy. And let's let the numbers do the talking. These are some of the things that I'm working on at GreenFlip with our team. Actually, all three of these things. And I think if we start doing some of these things and all of these things, I can really imagine a future where every single home is its own retrofitted power station, generating energy, sharing excess with its neighbors, comfortable, zero carbon, zero bill, and an incredible place to call home. And that's my vision for it, really. So I would like to enable the power stations of our future, which are our homes and our houses. Thank you for listening. Let's get some more of this sweet nectar.
Ooh.
Absolutely delicious. Would you like some as well, Katrina?
Yes, please.
It is delicious, isn't it?
Yes. And when you wash your hair, it's so much better.
Yeah, I need that stuff in my life, seriously.
Thank you so much, Amandeep. That was really excellent to hear such a personal experience as well. We're now going to, again, Slido, so please start to get your questions in. Okay, first one from Hannah. We'll just go straight into it. We hand in our cars for regular MOTs. Should we do the same for our homes?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think when I was working in Barking, the leader of the council there, Darren Rodwell, always talked about the MOT for the house and making it mandatory and an annual thing, and like tying it in with EPC to collect all of this extra information, but you're required to do it every year and service it in the same way. Because I think though we buy homes for ourselves, I think whether it's buying or renting, it should be seen as something that you're taking care of whilst you're there for whoever else it's passed on to once you've moved on. And because so many homes, the way we look at homes in the UK very much as assets and wanting to do what we need to do to raise the value, we don't necessarily think of them as things that we're taking care of before we hand them over. So I think that's a great idea, and I would massively back that. If Hannah in the audience is already working on this, then yes, you have my support.
Excellent. As an early startup, I suppose, what challenge are you facing challenges, and how are you working through that?
Well, I think one of the, it's challenging is being knee-deep in the sector and then working by developing a technology is a very new thing, which is why I'm working with an expert co-founder who's built loads of startups before, raised loads of money before. Challenges definitely what I always still see is apprehension towards software in the built environment industry. And I get that because I was apprehensive when I was either a client or an architect telling us things really quickly. We don't trust it because we're like, how can we? We go and do surveys, we do all this analysis, how can something give us? And I think my view to that is I think software never replaces physical surveys when you want incredible detailed accuracy when you're going in to install, but it can start to give you that 80% level of accuracy where it's just enough information so you've got data to act. So for me, it's about that challenge of convincing people that yes, it's not the answer to giving you that perfect physical survey, but it gives you enough decision data to act.
Yeah, and to make informed decisions as well. Let's see. Question, just some appreciation, so not a question. So our solutions are simple and don't want to and don't communicate that well. You mentioned 3 things that we need to do. Totally agree, but how? Let's jump.
I do not envy what you're doing because I'm looking at this.
How do we do it? Anything that's already happening that we can start to think about scale.
Anything that's already happened that we can start to scale. Actually, that's a great point because if any of you have heard of the book Switch by Dan and Chip Heath, it talks about finding bright sparks. It's not necessarily about finding massive, gigantic solutions like we need more Sizewell C nuclear plants to solve our energy crisis. In fact, we can retrofit 1.5 million homes and generate the same energy. So I always look to where are the bright sparks, whether it's communities retrofitting streets, whether it's somebody that's got an incredible whether Best has retrofitted their building and they've got great things to say. We find pockets of bright sparks and we power them with resources and scale what's working really well rather than trying to think there's one massive single bullet that needs loads of money. I think you'll find that actually the bright sparks do stuff with the least resources and often have the best results. Yeah,
the biggest impact. Neil's asking a question around how would you make an air source heat pump cost effective versus gas?
So I think that's where the point I go back to is installing an air source heat pump on its own in a very leaky house, it could be likely that it increases your bills. So my point was always that if you pair that with generating energy through solar and storing it, being on some fancy cool tariffs that example Octopus Energy run with their cozy tariffs and other things, and their other intelligent flex tariffs, you can get really, really close to zero energy bills actually. So it's definitely not a fantasy. Octopus are proving it and doing it, and we're also trying to work with them and others to prove that it can be done.
Brilliant, thank you. If you think about passive house or anything, the Letty guides that are sitting out there is the car. Would you say that in most cases? And how funding is always an issue. How do we support that, or how do we fund it?
So yeah, Letty guide has been incredible. Like throughout my career, whether I'm doing design review panels, I always use it to reference. I think that the thing with passive house for me is it is brilliant for building new stuff. And as an architect, the mantra was always passive house, fabric first, get the energy demand as low as possible, and then use humans to heat the room. Unfortunately, we just can't do that approach with existing buildings. And my family personal scenario was 20 years ago, and we're still installing installation badly now. And that's not because insulation is a problem, it's because we're trying to scale it. And the fact that each of our homes are basically living and breathing organisms, and we're going to this organism, sealing it, and then hoping that that just does one thing, but all it does is it's creating a problem somewhere else, which means we need building physics engineers before insulation installers to properly figure out where the condensation points are, what level of ventilations are, and then to try and scale that with insulation. That's been the problem. We haven't been able to scale a home-by-home insulation-led approach, whereas I think tech-led approach is far more scalable because the unintended consequences with the right combination are much lower and the risks are much lower.
Yeah, you mentioned building physics there, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure. And we talked about that with Rachel around, that's becoming such more important and prevalent, and especially within skills and training specifically. Next question. James has a question. Has GreenFlip puzzle piece managed to complete the Barking Estate puzzle?
Well, I wish I was that speedy. It's only been a year, so whenever you try and work with a local authority, as I know from 5 years of experience, procurement is a funny little word where it requires you to have a 10 million insurance and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I have great friends there, and at least they can get me started on a pilot, combining to work with somebody that has all of those credentials. So 100%. Because I know so much about that estate already, that is definitely, we're speaking with them to figure out what would be a great first pilot to do with them.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got time for a couple more questions. What will we go for? One, I suppose we've talked about local experience, working with local authority. What are the barriers what are the barriers to your 3 areas of focus that you've kind of mentioned?
Cool, there's a
today?
few I can answer there as well. So yeah, barriers to working, what are the barriers to... for local authorities, I think the challenge is innovation with local authorities. I used to have, when I worked in local authorities, startups, innovations coming to me all the time, and the difficulty is me trying to convince my higher-uppers that somebody that's just started 6 months ago is going to deliver on public money. So I immediately get, when I go back to a local authority, unless they're one that are primed with MDs that have a bit more of a risk-taking appetite, and I always say this, local authorities unfortunately are made and designed to protect public sector money and be risk-averse, and I always say not taking risk is taking lots of risk, because that is the biggest thing you can do as a leadership team in a council, is being super risk-averse and actually not taking the risk that you need to go and do some innovative project that drive change. So my issue has not been getting into the room, because I know lots of people in local authorities, but then it's going past the room to, right, let's do 1,000 homes. What does that look like? And then your credentials start to matter, basically, which is how long have you been running? What's your revenue? We're a startup. We're not making revenue yet. So yeah, and there's a question there about what's our minimum viable proposal or product at this time. What we've built so far is the ability at a postcode level to be able to tell you whether a home has zero build potential or not. And we're aiming for 80% accuracy on that one. A bunch of different machine learning models and AI that we've done. So if you want to play with your address, we've got on the GeoVation Scotland stand, we've got a couple of our team members there you can have a look at.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for your time. I think we've run out of time for questions. I know you have a little
more slides, yeah. So this is the encore now. Thank you so much.
I'll jump off.
Let's see if it comes on. Oh yeah, so this is the street now that my parents moved into over a decade ago. It's a typical post-war street, mid-terraced. And yeah, that inhaler went straight in the bin as soon as we moved into here with very light touch refurbishment. My mum has not had any asthma since moving into that place. I didn't connect to it then because I was super young, that her asthma was so connected to the house that we were living in, until we moved here, and I was like, oh wow, she can do sports properly again, and she can throw that in the bin. She doesn't have cold all year, and yeah, so it was an absolute revelation. And I ran the numbers through our platform, and it has great potential for zero build retrofit. So I'm working on doing that for them, basically starting towards the end of this year, because their boiler's knackered, and guess what the gas engineer said? Air source heat pump ain't gonna work. So I'm telling them, please don't listen to them, listen to your son, he's got a startup here. But yeah, so our mission is to help and support local authorities, housing associations, investors, private landlords, residents, energy companies and banks to decarbonise 1 million homes a year, because that's the speed and the scale we need to hit our 2050 challenges. Thank you so much for listening.